Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Hey everybody, Divine Martyr is one of the bands that will be at Kingdom Come Festival this weekend. I thought you might like to know more about them because I certainly did. I hope you enjoy. I've just kind of discovered you guys, which, you know, so many bands, so little time. So I want you each to tell me your name and what you do for the band.
I'm Jason, and I play guitar.
Is that it?
Yeah, I do some background vocals, but mostly guitar.
I'm Mark. I've been also in the band. Well, I'm going to say late 2015, early 2016 is when we officially, I think, got a start date on the band in the current lineup. And I'm the drummer, but I also write a lot of the principal orchestration in the parts because my background was in orchestration in one of my undergrad degrees. And I like mixing it with heavy metal. So that's what I do. Occasionally I'll do some vocal stuff, but I leave it to the more trained vocalists, we'll say. So
Speaking of vocalists, Olivia?
I'm Olivia. I'm the newest member. I think officially it's been probably like a year and a half, going on 2 years since I've really known the guys. So that's awesome. I'm the lead vocalist, and then I also play electric cello.
I'm Woody Hughes, and Mark and I pretty much started the band back in 2016, I guess. And I play bass. I'm kind of a newcomer to bass. I've only been playing for about 8 years. Everyone's skill set in this band is much better than mine. They have a much more experience.
You're a quick learner.
What did you do before you played bass?
I kind of fiddled around with the guitar a little bit for many, many years. Never really took it seriously. Kind of just played a lot of tabs, stuff like that, which I regret. But that was pretty much it. I just always loved music and switched to bass because I just really like rhythm. Like when you hear a guitarist, you kind of expect a guitarist play some really pretty cool stuff, you know, and bassists, I think, kind of get the reputation of just kind of hitting the root notes and just laying down the rhythm. But I kind of like to do a little bit more than that. So I just like the rhythm stuff. I'd be a drummer otherwise, probably.
What gave you the idea to start a band? Was it like, hey, I need a band?
Yeah, right. Well, it was kind of actually twofold. I always say, the primary reason I wanted to start a band was because I felt called. So when I moved back to the Midwest, I wanted to get involved in a church, and I was starting to kind of come back to my faith. And I started playing in a church, started playing bass. I wanted to use my talent in just creating music in general. And I think also with the fact that I was new to bass, the quickest way that you can get better at an instrument is by playing with people who are better than you. So that's why we have Mark, we have Jason and Olivia. So but actually it's true. It's true. Like if you want to get much better at an instrument, go play in a band. That would be the first thing I'd recommend to anyone picking up an instrument. Once they kind of learn their basics and get their calluses built up, then go play in a band. That was the main reason. And reach people who don't feel comfortable going to church.
Are you all based in the Indianapolis area?
I actually live in Dayton, Ohio.
Olivia's the oddball, so most of us are kind of in or around Indianapolis. But yeah, like Olivia said, she's out of Dayton, so she's a couple hours east of us. So, for her to come and do rehearsals and do shows with us, she's just been an absolute trooper. Because I don't know if any of the rest of us could pull off what she does, to be honest.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
So
True.
You went after her because of her cello or her voice or both?
initially I was actually speaking to Olivia with prospect of bringing her in for studio work on some new material for cello. And what happened is we started looking for a new vocalist, and she had just, I don't know if this was coincidence, I don't really believe in that, but in coincidence, but we'll say timing was perfect. She was uploading some of her solo vocal stuff, a little more in the pop genre. And that quickly turned into, let's audition her for our stuff and see if it would work. And it ended up working out really well. That's the short story.
How did you become a rock cellist?
Well, I have been playing cello since I was 8 years old. And so I've always been classically trained. I have a degree in cello, but I have always been involved with church music and playing, like gigs at coffee shops. I was in like an indie band back in 2008. So I've always liked to do contemporary music. And I play for weddings, so that a lot of times we do classical music, but also nowadays so much contemporary music. So I've always just kind of played every genre. So it was easy to start playing with Divine Martyr.
So, Mark, how long have you been playing drums?
Oh boy, do I want to give away my age? No, it's so I'm probably approaching, I think, 31 years of playing drums. I'm not going to tell you the age I started, but went through the similar as Olivia, went through full classical training, conservatory training, went through undergraduate degree, was on tour with 2 other bands after graduation, and then took a few years off and wanted to basically rededicate my music for bringing souls to the kingdom, I'd say. Because I've played in bands that had believers in the band, but I never had any band that was dedicated mission to basically as a seed planting band, just to tell people about who Jesus is. So it was really exciting to join.
So you also do keys and orchestration. So you learn piano and you play other instruments as well?
Yep. My undergraduate actual instrument was marimba. So I was one of the marimba students. But I transferred over to basically piano from marimba because I was doing minor lessons in jazz piano as undergrad. And that's where I was introduced as I was doing undergrad jazz into orchestration and film orchestration technique. And that's where it kind of took off, where I just went into full composer mode and I would write as much as I could. Really enjoyed the genre, writing for the instruments. On the bookshelf, we had a picture here I could show you. I've got like Rimsky-Korsakov's book. That's actually not my favorite. There's a few other books that are just stacked that are always open for reference and to get ideas. And I'm always upskilling, taking more classes in orchestration.
Well, you weren't kidding, Woody. You found you some good music nerds. I'm impressed.
See, you surround yourself with more talented people. That's what you do. You do it in business, and that's how you can become successful.
So let's talk a little bit about the music. I was listening to some of your stuff, and I was like, oh, this is kind of sophisticated metal rock.
I like that.
Yeah. That symphonic power metal, is that what you're calling this?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We take a little bit of everything, I think.
Yeah, borrowing from some different genres and kind of mixing them together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If I had my druthers, Jason would play new metal.
New metal, oh my.
I was a new metal kid in the 90s. That's the eyebrow ring era. That was me.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
I love it. I couldn't wear an eyebrow. If we were
Where's your Jinkos, baby?
Yeah.
I had a pair.
I figured you'd have a pair. Does anybody feel led to maybe give their faith story or their faith journey?
Well, I think mine's kind of a little different than I would say a lot of people, because I grew up in a very Protestant fundamentalist home. I've probably been to every different type of church you could think of, at least it feels like when I was growing up. The evangelical, Baptist, Assemblies of God, Nazarene. I grew up primarily in Nazarene church, Wesleyan. And so I grew up pretty strict. And when I left the house at 19, I went crazy. And I didn't want to have anything to do with God because I'd been going Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, and Wednesday nights. And let's not count the good old revivals during the summer months. So I hated it, didn't want to have anything to do with it. I felt kind of suppressed by my parents and took off. And it's funny because my wife came from a different background that she was raised. So we got married very young. So when I got married, I started going out and wanting to party and drinking, and she wanted to get away from that stuff. And so it was
Different
weird.
direction.
Yeah. But then kind of fast forward, I always say that it took me to move to the most liberal state of the United States to get back to my faith, which is a little bit of irony. And so I moved to California, and then being from a Protestant background, I converted to Catholicism in 2003. And I would always go by this Catholic church and always felt this pull to go check it out. And I was like, I didn't know anything about Catholics. And I just walked in one day and I was just floored. And I really felt the Spirit of God there, which is interesting because you hear a lot of Catholics who leave the church and they say they don't feel anything, but it was totally opposite for me. Yeah, kind of progressed, fell away from my faith a little bit. And then I came back about 6 months ago. And so, so now I'm writing a book on my conversion story. So
wow. Went around the world spiritually.
Feels like it, yeah.
Denominationally around the world.
Feels like it, trust me.
Does anybody else want to share one?
In my case, I was raised non-denom church, had some issues, but not with the theology and not with the Bible, not with God or anything like that. I ended up leaving the church for a few years. Basically, I was still in the Bible and praying and fasting every day, but ended up actually going over and was in some Jewish congregations, or we'll say in synagogue, and that's it, but only Messianic, so Messianic side. So started learning the Bible in Hebrew, working on the languages still to the day. That's how I read it. I read it in English, then take it to the Hebrew, and at least on the Old Testament and the Tanakh. And maybe it was a journey the Lord wanted me to be on, because it's one of those, if you believe the Tanakh, at least this is my testimony, I can't speak for everybody, but if you believe the Tanakh for what it says, so the Tanakh is, if anybody who's on here doesn't know what Tanakh, it's just an acronym for the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, which is the Old Testament. We can just say Old Testament. If you believe the Old Testament, then you'll believe that Jesus is the Messiah. I mean, that's within a very, since I'm also a stats guy, within a very, very, we're talking 99.9999, add about 1,000,000 nines to that percent chance that he definitely is the Messiah. And I'm going to say 100% chance, because he fulfilled this, he will fulfill like some of the other ones when he comes the second time. So that's my story. And now I'm still back. I'm back, and I attend a non-denominational church. At the end of the day, it's more like I just am happy when people are teaching what Jesus taught. And that's it.
Anyone else?
I don't have a lengthy story.
It's not a competition.
Yeah, I know, right?
So let me talk.
They're making it a competition.
We'll never get done.
No, but I'm just like Baptist.
Olivia would like to say if she is vanilla. Me too, Olivia. Me too.
Yes, I just go to like a Bible-based church. I'm just really all about reaching people who are marginalized and just love. That's my biggest thing. So, and then I think, Jason, if you want to just pop in a little bit.
Yeah. So, my story is kind of the classic. I didn't grow up in church, and I kind of despised and ran from God as much as I could, in my teens and even in my early 20s. And then I met my wife, my future wife, and it's just one of those things where it was very much from God, the timing of it. And, I never had any exposure to church or any interest until I met her, and then she just kind of had this influence that washed over me. And that's kind of the point in my life where God finally got a hold of my heart and just sort of drew me in, and we started going to church on a regular basis. And, I gave my life to Christ at 21 years old. I'd been a musician for a number of years, playing in secular bands and stuff up to that point. And that was one of the first big things he convicted me of was, you need to walk away from this band. This band does not honor me. It does not glorify me. You need to step away. And that was kind of the first big challenge that I faced as a believer, as far as being convicted. And then from that point, I met some guys in the late 90s, early 2000, group of believers that I could play with, and just we were all like-minded in spirit and faith, and all the music came together, and I realized, I could use this talent that God had given me to turn around and glorify Him. And that's kind of when I found and realized my purpose in life. So it kind of brought me to where I am today, and I've been doing that for 20 plus years now.
Amen.
Amen.
The band has done an EP and a slew of singles, but I understand, a little birdie told me, or the internet told me, that you guys are working on a full-length album. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah.
We're going a little bit light on the shows and festivals this year. Like you said, we're going to focus on just hitting the studio hard. We've got such a backlog of songs, probably easily, 40, 50 songs plus.
Oh,
really broke it down. I mean,
Don't remind me.
Yeah.
We've kind of narrowed it down to maybe 10 or 12 songs I think we're going to focus on. A few of those are kind of already in production. Drums and guitars are tracked. We're moving right along. But yeah, we've kind of got a plan laid out, and God willing, obviously it takes time, it takes money. So God willing, all those things come together in time, and that's what we're going to spend, I think, the majority of this year focusing on, is getting that record together, and then kind of hitting the stage hard in 2024.
Hoping to get it done by the end of 2023.
We're aiming for like a spring release. But again, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have to come together for that to happen. So we're just kind of praying that God opens the door and provides all of the necessary elements for that to happen.
Spring of 2024.
Yeah. Okay. So, Cindy, I think that the luxury that you have with interviewing a non-label band is that we can kind of be a little wishy-washy. Like, labels won't let you say, like, yeah, unless it's absolutely firm that they're going to do something. You know, they're like really secretive about it. We probably should not overcommit publicly. I think we always say, yeah, we're going to do an album, like we're going to have one out this winter, and then we start realizing real life gets in, and then we're like, well, and then we don't think about, well, the fact that like we release an album in the wintertime in Indiana, are you going to be able to tour, or are you going to be able to play shows to promote it? It's like, no. So it's kind of like a year from now, and we also have some medical stuff coming up that will not allow us to really, particularly me, won't be allowing me to be able to finish an album or play after August for about 8 weeks. So it's spring, but I'm pretty confident. I'd love to do another video. I love doing the video, although I tell you, it'll never be in the winter again. I don't care what Mark says.
It will not. Truth came out a few months ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it won't be in a barn in the middle of December,
November,
on the coldest weekend for like a radius of 6 weeks around that weekend. There was no other coldest weekend. So yeah. It was brutal.
If it tells you anything, it was snowing in the barn. It was kind of a cool effect, but freezing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we didn't ask for it, but.
Well, when she wipes off the mirror in the very beginning, that's actually real snow. That was not
snow.
there.
Yeah, that was a nice effect.
Yeah. And it's not fake breath that you see. Like when you see us blowing out, like that's that. Yep. You know, I try to play really fast with my fingers anyway, and playing at 10 degrees. You know, we had two floor heaters. I had one of those big, huge cylinder tank heaters, and we were getting so close, actually some of the girls' coats were getting caught on fire. It was so cold. It was melting.
Yeah.
So
people pay good money for that, the smoke and the snow, and y'all got that for free. Whose idea was it to do this in the middle of winter?
I think it was mine. I'll take the blame on it. So
down there.
So while we're talking about it, somebody tell us a little bit about the video, besides the fact that y'all were either on fire or freezing.
I think Olivia should talk about it. She wrote the song. And
Okay. So the video is kind of like the journey, the faith journey, kind of like what we just talked about, being in darkness and then ending up in light. I don't know if you remember at the very end, I'm like walking into the light. So at the beginning, it's kind of just showing like the struggle and the frustration. And the lyrics are basically based on a few, like our particular event, but just was written about just like the difficulties in life and traumatic experiences, and just being able to turn to God and realizing that He is the truth. We know how it ends at the end of this time here on earth. There's more. It was very personal to me, but I wrote the song in a way that kind of is generic so that anyone can relate to it. I think everyone feels that way who's a Christian sometimes. So I don't know, Mark, if you want to go into your storyboard a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. You've seen the proverbial, we saw it in the Rocky movies. We saw it everywhere else. We'll look into a mirror and it's kind of a self-evaluation. But the idea, without going too philosophical on the matter, is when you look into a mirror, you only see a two-dimensional image of that angle. You don't see the whole three-dimensional story. And that's why the mirror was everywhere. Is we see this image. It's kind of like the proverb from the New Testament, where Paul's talking about we look into a glass darkly. And sure, we can apply that as well. In this case, it's more, we're just not seeing the whole picture. And we think this picture in front of our face is all that there is and ever will be, because that's the image we see. But if we saw the larger picture, we would honestly see quite a bit more. If nothing else, a trial is a learning experience, and this is a molding process. It's another trial where we learn to trust in the Almighty God. So that was the idea of the mirror. You'll see the mirror around the video and so forth, and then you've got the full band shots. And there is some symbolism, but at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is the dress Olivia's wearing is getting basically cleaner and lighter, and we'll say to a white dress there at the end. And that's what it is it's the image of a transition. We wanted to show more of a gradual transition stage where the more we focus in the mirror, we're going to have that, we'll say, that dingy appearance, because it's our self-appearance. If we each saw the way God views us, sure, we need to be cleaned up. We all need to come to Jesus. We need to be under the blood of the Messiah. But he's basically drawing us to him. He will clean us up. And that was the idea, is we're getting cleaned up. We're walking towards the Almighty. He's changing our heart, but he's also using this trial experience to maybe also help somebody else going through the same experience. The idea is he will use, hypothetically, let's say you're an alcoholic. Once he steers you from that, he'll have you reach out to other alcoholics. If you were marginalized, guess what? He's going to have you go reach out to the marginalized. It doesn't matter what your trial was. He will definitely find a way to use that. So that's the idea, is the whole high-level storyboard is the transition from the bleak now to the bright future, if you will.
Tell me about Mystique. You threw me off a little. That one's instrumental.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So Jason, I think, was the one that stemmed kind of like the melody with your guitar and everything. I think you guys had already had the song pretty much written, and then I added my cello part.
Some of the fundamental stuff. I don't want to take credit for Mark. He's the one that actually put together the bulk of that song. And, at some point we kind of decided, okay, this feels more like an instrumental, right? It just kind of felt natural. So I kind of laid the guitar stuff on top of that. But yeah, Mark actually came up with sort of the foundation of that song, and then we all sort of built more pieces on top of that.
Yeah, the electric cello is the last part added. But it's just nice to have something where you can just kind of sit and reflect. We don't always need to be talking and singing. Sometimes it's cool to just think about all the awesome things that God has done. Or just give yourself some time to relax. So it's kind of a dynamic piece. There's some really fast arpeggios and scales and stuff, but then there's some really relaxed parts too.
Yeah, and I will say the cello absolutely makes that song. That was a good song before Olivia came on board. She made it a really great song, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know. There's something about a cello. So rich. It's just that tone.
It's just so great.
It really is. And another song that I listened to was Fear. Tell us about that one.
Well, that's our favorite, probably. I think, as a band.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Now you have to tell me why.
Mark wrote that a long time ago.
Dude.
Yeah, Mark wrote all of those lyrics.
Fear, even though it's called Fear, and the subject matter's fear, it's also a subject matter lyrically of marginalization, where there's so many people, let's say, in your circle that you may know and talk to every day. You may not have any idea that what they're going through, and that's what a lot of fear is based on, is either they don't want to share what they're going through, or they try to share and they're ignored. It's the tale of two cities, if you will, on that one. And that's really what it is. And it turns into, it's an encouragement of the person who's either trying to voice what they're going through and is being ignored, or doesn't know how to voice what they're going through. At a high level, we're steering them to not only a God who understands what you're going through. He may put someone into your life. He may strengthen you to where he uses you to strengthen another person going through that. And that's the idea. It's a gradual encouragement and building up song. That's it lyrically. Also trying to subtly embed some scripture in there to the ears maybe you'll never go into a church or never open a Bible. And it's like, okay, let's actually put some scripture into it so we can plant some seeds. Another band will water it and so forth. God will give the increase. Like instrumentally, Jason and I and Woody, and I think Olivia too, we'll convert her. We'll see it. We're all big fans of Camelot, or reasonably good fans of Camelot. We'll just put it that way. So only the beginning sounds more like Evanescence, so it turned into Evanesce a lot. Evanesce a lot. So yeah, that's kind of the influence on instrumentally on the writing portion of it. Originally, the song itself, before going heavy, was the beginning part was actually just a piano solo piece, and that got converted to full orchestration and bombastic power metal. So.
Yeah, I remember when you first wrote that. Was it just you and I, and maybe
that was before my time for sure.
Yeah. I mean, so Cindy, it was he and I, and we had a guy named Dan Klingler that was with us for a few months, and our first song that we ever recorded, Mark and I recorded Martyr's Hymn. But we were in a church when we recorded our first song together, and just set up mics and everything, and yeah, it was a good time. So yeah.
Going back to Fear real quick, I think one of the reasons I love the song, and I think it's just popular amongst the band too, is it's just such a universal theme. Fear can be different things to different people, but it's something that at some point in our life, we all experience some type of fear, some type of uncertainty. But I mean, like Mark said, you go back to, God is the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we're trying to direct people to. There is hope there is something good if you just keep pushing.
Fear is a fundamental aspect of Satan and the diabolical, right? So they fear the fact that they know that their time is short. So they want to suppress man and make him and her fearful because that's how they feel, because they know they're wrong, right? They know they went against the natural law and the reason why God created them. They said no. So I think it's important to recognize that and recognize that fear is never good. I mean, some things, obviously we get scared, things like that, but the fear that something is not going to happen, we're told not to worry and just realize that that's oftentimes the work of the devil. So that's a good song.
We're going to be playing those songs tonight so people can check them out. When you are not doing music, what are y'all doing? Or what did you plan on doing?
Yeah, for me, when I kind of went through a couple of different phases, actually. When I was young, 8, 10, 12, I loved planes, especially military planes growing up. So I, at one point, thought I might go into the military, Air Force or something, and try to be a pilot. And then I thought at some point I was really into comic books and that type of artwork and that whole world. And so I thought maybe at some point I might be a comic book artist. For whatever reason, never panned out. So I ended up in the design engineering world. A mechanical design engineer for a living. And I've been doing that type of work since pretty much right out of high school. I'm also a visual artist. So I do a lot of sketching, drawing, comic related stuff like that, caricatures, character design, that sort of thing.
I keep bad guys out of computers, so I'm a security engineer. Yeah, I've been doing it for about 23 years now, I think, for an insurance company in Indianapolis. Okay. My dream was to be a police officer, but I was always into computers, and so I went that route instead. So
actually, I finished what I was wanting to do. I ended up doing what was called music engineering technology. It was basically an audio engineering degree. Then you had your major as a music major. So it was a music degree. And so you had your major instrument and everything. And that's where what was interesting is that's where I was exposed to orchestral music and writing for orchestration, because it was basically mixing a double E degree led by the School of Physics. So that's just how the school was aligned, mixing that with recording technology. And then it was a composition degree in music. So I ended up completing the recording engineering degree, getting exposed to composition. But the direction I wanted to go was actually more towards engineering. So I actually got a second degree in where it's actually in electrical physics, and then more training in embedded systems after that. So I basically did both, except for the industry I actually ended up in was quality. So it's kind of the engineering disciplines and recording disciplines, but I ended up in quality engineering and then quality management.
Olivia?
I always wanted to do healthcare, medicine, science, and I wanted to be a rapper at one point.
Really?
So fast forward, 20 years. I wanted to do dental school for a while and med school, but I was actually a little bit resistant about majoring in music because, it's hard to make money.
What?
But as I became more and more passionate and obsessed, I actually went off to get a master's in cello. So I definitely continued with the music thing. I did cello instead of rapping, which I think was a God thing. And and then now I'm in nursing. So, I didn't go the dental route, but I'm definitely still in the healthcare realm.
Yeah, you made your dream come true.
Yes, I feel that way.
I want to ask you one more question because I do bring road snacks a lot. And so I like to know, what's your favorite road snacks?
Just for chocolate. Pretty much anything chocolate. That's my weakness. I know that's pretty broad, but...
M&M's.
Woody's chomping at the bit.
I'm just dying to tell. What's my favorite road snack?
Skittles.
Purple ones. Like the family sharing big bag.
The super-sized bag.
The diabetic in a bag.
But only for you.
Diabetes in a bag.
Yeah. That's why I have Olivia. She's going to be a nurse.
All right, Mark, what about you?
Something coffee related.
Chocolate coffee.
I'll take it. Sounds great.
I just got M&Ms that are cold brew coffee M&Ms.
No way. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, I saw a commercial for them and I immediately got on Amazon and bought them.
I know a few people that might like those myself. Thank you all so much. It was so good to get to meet you all.
Thank you.
And I know I'm going to see you at KCF. We will be there.
Awesome.
I'm so excited.
I'll be bringing some banana pudding. I told Angie I'd bring some.
Oh, I love
Awesome.
Did y'all get any last year? It was in the catering.
That was my favorite.
You had some.
Yes.
No, I did. Yes, that was you.
That was me.
Oh, see, we love you more.
Totally. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
I
so
will be in
much.
touch. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more great music and check out my blog page on the Solid Rock Radio website for my guests' social media links. If you've missed any of my past interviews, you can find them uploaded to podcast.solidrockradio.org. Have a wonderful week and let's be kind to one another.